All right, so what we're going to do now is see how we can create a serverless function within GCP. Within GCP, once we've logged in, we do cloud run functions. So once we've gone here, it doesn't look like I have anything deployed yet. We could hit, let's see, create function. We'll get some configuration changes here. Let's close out of some of these tabs. All right, so we got the cloud run function and give this a name. Maybe let's call this blood pressure. Trigger type. So we're going to say HTTPS. We're going to get some URL authentication. We're going to allow unauthenticated invocations. And then let's see what else we got here. So runtime, we could select a runtime, timeout, maximum concurrencies. No need for this to go up to 100. We'll just set 3. Service count, we'll just leave that as default. Build. Doesn't look like really. Sorry, I'm just going to move this around here so I could see it. I'll just leave all this stuff the same. Connections, allow any traffic, network. So allow the default security. Well, all right, so it looks like we'll kind of pretty much keep all the rest of those the same. Just change the number of instances here to a maximum of 3. Cool. And then now let's click next. And it looks like, so here's our little code editor. So here, these are the different runtimes that are available to us. We got .NET, Go, Java, Node, which is JavaScript, PHP, and then here's our Python. So just to keep this simple, let's maybe select Python 3.10. This is some, basic function endpoint here. So this is the function name, hello HTTP, takes in a request. In the request, it's going to then look for some arguments. In the arguments, it's going to look for something called name, and then it's going to parse that name and then say hello with whatever the name is. Else, we'll say, maybe please provide your name in the name argument. Or parameter. Otherwise, it just says hello, whatever the name is. We've got a requirements.text. Let's see, is there a save or does this automatically save? Looks like this automatically saves. So there's a requirements.text. So this is, Google Cloud Function Package, functions-framework. Let's hit this test function. Start testing, sure. So what this is going to do is going to open up a little test environment, and then here's the trigger, which will be an HTTP request or some body or parameter. So then maybe we change this to haunts, right? So there's going to be a name, and then it's going to have a value of haunts. So what would we then expect once this trigger event runs is then we should have a hello haunts exclamation mark if all of this goes according to plan. So let's just give this a second. So it looks like this is still building. And then what we should be able to do is hit this run test once this GCF testing environment has finished deploying down over here. So I'm just going to pause the video and wait for this build to finish, and then I'll resume and we'll give this a test. All right, so looks like it's just about there. This little pop-up authorize Cloud Shell, we'll hit authorize. Cool. And now, once it's connected, we can now hit this run test button. And let's see what it does. Response down below, hello haunts, right? So then let's do some changing here just to kind of further showcase how this works, right? So maybe instead of it being name, right, we change this to first name. And then let's just copy and sort of change that wherever we're looking for first name. we'll just leave, and here we could even change this as well. So it's first name. And then here in our triggering event, we would need to change this to first name. And then maybe we also add like a last name. Let's say Williams. This is comma separated. So first key pair, first name Hans, last name Williams. And here we'll just say also oops. So the way that this is set up is it's looking at either the body of the request or an argument, which is a sort of parameter. I'll explain that in just a second. So first name, last name, cool. Else, first name, last name. Please provide your last name. Please provide your first name. So something like this. I'm not too sure if this automatically detects the changes, but we'll see. Stopping previous deployment, building. Cool. Looks like it then automatically rebuilds for us. So it's then getting these updates. And again, now the expected behavior would be, it says, hello, Hans Williams. Okay, ready to deploy and test. Great. It says, hello, Hans Williams, right? We're going to change this to Hans and then run, right? It says, hello, Hans. If we were to change this to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, hit run, right? Hello. Followed, has one argument and then the second argument. Okay, great. So then, this is interesting, but then how do we then actually sort of deploy this and test it? So now let's hit the deploy button. We'll modify this later because we actually want to maybe modify this so it has like blood pressure or something. So here's our URL. It's like the build and service is pending, so it's probably going to take a minute. But while this is thinking, what we're going to do is we're going to just open up a new notebook here. Say import requests. So the requests library is our package to try and do requests, HTTP requests. Then here what we're going to have is maybe parameters. We'll have something called first name. It's going to be Hans. And then we'll have a last name, which is going to be Williams. Then following this, we're going to have a response. I'm just going to let this auto-populate itself. And then we're going to get the message back. All right, So the build is finished and it's now starting to run. So we'll just give this a second. Cool. All right, so now let's try and use this. So let's import requests. Just initializing the library, great. We'll load up the URL, then load up the parameters. So then here request.get. Is this a get request? I think this might be a post request. Let's double check. Trigger, executed function. Let's go in here. So 4 different types of main requests that we could do: a get, a post, a put, and a delete. Let's see. Error loading. This might be because of my Wi-Fi or something. Okay, there we go. I forget if it's a get request or a post. All right, well, regardless, all we'll do is we'll get an error message if this runs into an error here. Response. Oh, cool, so it is a get request. And we'll say text. Great, so there it is, right? Hello, Hans Williams. Change Williams to Hans. Change the parameters and we rerun this. Now it says hello, Hans. Great, so that's the basic idea. And then what I'll show in the second video is what we could then do is go into the source code and maybe we write a slightly different Python function here. So instead of taking first name and last name, we get a systolic blood pressure and a diastolic blood pressure, or maybe just systolic blood pressure, and then we kind of say, hey, if the systolic value is above or below a certain value, or if the diastolic is above or below a certain value, we do something. So I'll show that in the follow-up. But the main thing here, though, once we have the URL, right, we can then import in requests, do a URL equals whatever the HTTPS URL provided to us from Google is. Then our parameters here could be whatever we've defined in the function, and then we have request.get, and that will take 2 arguments, the URL and then something called parameters. So we say parameters equal parameters. So if I wanted to, I could maybe just say cloud parameters to make that a little bit more easy to comprehend. So there is an argument within the get request called params, and when we do HTTP requests, there are essentially sort of like 4 components to it. There could be like a few more. There's usually a header. There could be, the sort of 2 simplest ones is there's a header and then there's a body component. So, and in the header, we could have parameters that sort of augment what the URL is. So that's what we're doing here. And then we're performing the request, returning it as a variable response, and then this response.text is just providing us the value of the returned response. All right, so we'll do some modifications in the follow-up video.